New Orleans, 1918. A city pulsing with jazz, celebration, and life. But beneath the rhythm of brass bands and the glow of gas lamps, something far darker was waiting in the shadows. It didn't knock. It didn't warn. It slipped silently into homes in the dead of night, and left behind scenes so brutal, they haunted the city for decades. Families went to bed like any other night. Doors locked. Windows shut. Everything normal. Until, sometime after midnight, an intruder would enter, not through the front door, but by chiseling panels out of back doors, like a ghost slipping through the walls. And then, with an axe, often the victim's own, he struck. No clear motive. No robbery. No pattern that made sense. Only fear. The newspapers gave him a name that would echo through history, the Axeman. But what made this killer truly terrifying wasn't just the murders. It was the letter. A letter that promised death to anyone who didn't listen to jazz. And on one chilling night, the entire city obeyed. This is the story of the Axeman of New Orleans, one of America's most bizarre and haunting unsolved mysteries. The deep storytelling at the turn of the 20th century, New Orleans was unlike anywhere else in America. A melting pot of cultures, music, and tradition. Italian immigrants, Creole families, and jazz musicians filled the streets with life. But in May of 1918, that life was shattered. The first known victims were Joseph and Catherine Maggio, an Italian-American couple who ran a small grocery store. One night, neighbors heard nothing unusual. No screams. No struggle. But the next morning, police arrived to a horrifying scene. The couple had been brutally attacked in their home. Their throats cut, their heads battered. There was blood everywhere. And beside them lay the weapon, an axe taken from their own property. There were no signs of forced entry. But investigators later discovered a panel in the back door had been chiseled out. It was deliberate, calculated, and deeply unsettling. Then, just weeks later, it happened again. Another Italian-American family. Another late-night attack. Another axe. Victims were often found in their beds, struck while they slept. Some survived long enough to describe the attacker, but their accounts were inconsistent. Some said he was tall. Others said short. Some claimed he wore dark clothing, others saw nothing at all. It was as if the killer had no identity. Or worse, many identities. By the summer of 1918, fear spread like wildfire. Families began sleeping with weapons nearby. Doors were reinforced. Windows barred. But none of it seemed to matter. Because the Axeman didn't follow rules. He didn't break in like a normal criminal. He slipped in, quietly, almost surgically. And he left just as silently. By early 1919, the killings had escalated. Panic gripped the city. Newspapers sensationalized every detail, feeding both fear and fascination. Then came the letter. The cold case clues on March 13, 1919, a letter arrived at the offices of the Times-Picayune. It was signed simply, The Axeman. The letter was unlike anything investigators had seen before. It claimed the killer was not human. That he was a demon from the hottest hell. That he chose his victims at random. But the most chilling part? He promised that on the following Tuesday night, he would kill again. Unless every home in New Orleans was filled with jazz music. If a house was playing jazz, he wrote, he would spare them. If not, they would die. It sounded insane. Absurd. Almost theatrical. But the city didn't take any chances. On the night of March 19, 1919, something incredible happened. Every single bar, club, and home in New Orleans filled the air with jazz. Bands played all night. Families blasted music from their living rooms. Even those who didn't like jazz played it anyway. The streets echoed with trumpets, pianos, and drums. And that night, no murders were reported. Coincidence? Or something far stranger? Investigators were baffled. The Axeman had taunted the entire city, and seemingly followed through on his bizarre promise. But the killings didn't stop forever. More attacks followed. More victims. More confusion. And yet, no one was ever caught. There were suspects. There were theories. But no solid evidence that could bring the killer to justice. It was as if the Axeman had simply vanished. Before we dive deeper into the theories, take a moment. If you're fascinated by mysteries like this, make sure you hit like, subscribe to Shadow Files, and share this video. Because stories like this deserve to be remembered and maybe, one day, solved. The theories over the years, countless theories have tried to explain who, or what, the Axeman really was. Theory 1. A serial killer with a pattern. The most logical explanation is that the Axeman was a human serial killer targeting specific victims. Many of the victims were Italian-American grocers. Some investigators believed this pointed to organized crime, possibly extortion or retaliation. But there was a problem. Nothing was stolen. No money. No valuables. And the brutality didn't match typical mob killings. Others suggested the killer had a personal vendetta, or suffered from severe mental illness. The randomness of the attacks, combined with the theatrical letter, could point to someone seeking attention or control. But if that's true, how did he evade capture so completely? Theory 2. A copycat or multiple killers. Some believe there wasn't just one Axeman. Instead, the crimes may have been committed by multiple individuals, each mimicking the same method. The similarities between attacks could have been exaggerated by newspapers looking to create a sensational story. Different killers. Same legend. This would explain the inconsistent witness descriptions and the lack of a clear pattern. But it also raises another question. Why would multiple people commit such brutal acts, with no clear motive? Theory 3. The jazz connection. The letter about jazz remains one of the strangest elements of the case. Some historians believe it was a hoax, written not by the killer, but by someone looking to capitalize on the fear. Others think it was genuine. If it was, what did it mean? Was the Axeman a musician? Someone deeply connected to the jazz scene? Or was it all just a twisted game, a way to prove he could control an entire city? Interestingly, shortly after the letter, a song titled, "The Mysterious Axeman's Jazz," was released, further blurring the line between reality and spectacle. It's possible the killer, or the person behind the letter, wanted fame more than anything else. Theory 4. Something paranormal. This is where the story takes a darker turn. The letter claimed the Axeman was not human. A demon. A being that couldn't be stopped. While this theory is often dismissed, some details are difficult to ignore. The silent entries. The lack of witnesses. The way the killer seemed to appear and disappear without a trace. Could it all be explained logically? Probably. But in a city like New Orleans, known for its deep spiritual traditions, voodoo history, and folklore, the idea of something supernatural didn't seem so impossible. Even today, some believe the Axeman was never caught, because he was never truly human to begin with. Closing. By late 1919, the murders simply stopped. No final clue. No arrest. No confession. Just silence. The Axeman faded into legend, leaving behind a trail of fear, unanswered questions, and one of the most bizarre chapters in American criminal history. Was he a man? A group of killers? A mastermind playing games with an entire city? Or something far more mysterious? We may never know. But one thing is certain. For a brief, terrifying moment, the city of New Orleans danced to survive. And somewhere in the shadows, the Axeman listened. If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe to Shadow Files, and share this video with someone who loves unsolved mysteries. Because the truth is out there, waiting.